We thank very much indeed, Father Jaroslav, for this comprehensive tour d'horizon, so to speak. And we open the floor, and also our colleagues and friends online, don't hesitate to drop your questions, challenges on the chat room. So,
challenges to Father Rotlin.
This time I'm sheltered by Father Jaroslav. Yes, please.
On top of that, Christ, Jesus Christ, Christian faith. From your lived experience as a Jesuit priest, and your practice of vegan, let's say, vegetarian diet, how do you see Christian faith would enhance Buddhism, Buddhist faith, or vice versa, how Buddhism can enhance Christian faith? Yes.
Thank you very much for this very comprehensive question. Actually, you asked the toughest issues that are the subject of the Christian-Buddhist dialogue for already centuries. Basically, the most intensive period of discussion was in the 20th century. Okay, so the first issue about suffering, it is really the most essential one, because Buddhism, the proposal of Buddhism, the proposal of the Buddha is how to solve the problem of human suffering, the very essential one. He heard a lot of discussions about this Brahminic considerations that you have to be a good religious person in order for God to bless you in your life, but still the suffering happens, right? So one day there was a woman came to see him crying because her daughter died, and she was seeking from Buddha some kind of answer of consolation. Please help me. So the answer was, go and look for any other household where there was no suffering and cry and mourning of other people, and come back to me. So as you can imagine, she never returned to Buddha. So Buddhism does not consider suffering as a moral or ethical issue as much as Christianity in connection with the original sin, right? So there is no theory or doctrine of the original sin, but there is a doctrine of karma, which Buddhists inherited from Hindu traditions. But it understands karma in different ways. Karma is, in Buddhism, is intentional. It means my intention of action has an influence on the karmic fruits that I will have to pay back in the future life. So my actions and intentions count. But for Buddhists, there are two kinds of karma. There is individual karma and also so-called social karma. It means there are effects like earthquakes, disaster, calamities, which we as individuals, we do not have possibility to, they happen, right? We do not know why. Buddhism explains these calamities as the result of social karma. What does it mean? It means that if we as a society, we become corrupted as a community, as a society, not following basic standards, ethical standards, this contributes to overall negative karma, social karma, and it has its effect in social calamities. So nowadays we can perfectly say that the so-called climate, some people do not believe climate change, right? Natural disasters are human-made because we as humans, we contribute to it. So Buddhists would explain that this way, that we have responsibility for the suffering. But for Buddhists, there is no ethical understanding of suffering as such. For Buddhists, more important is what? We confront the problem of suffering through or by confronting the problem of human ignorance. Every evil, whatever is injustices, what we call sin, it comes not from original sin or moral sin, it comes from ignorance. I'm ignorant about my nature and the origin of my attachments, my craving that causes suffering, first to me and also to the environment. So once Buddha says, once you become aware of how you are attached to the reality by craving, then you will understand that you are causing the suffering. And then once you understand it, you may seize it or you may change it, and then you can improve, you can live a better life and also contribute to others. This is how Buddhism would solve the problem. Then you ask the question of kenosis, or the question of suffering, right? In the context of Christianity, what Buddhists can learn from Christians and vice versa. So one of the important things that Buddhists can learn from Christians there, because continuously I was talking mainly about what Father Raguin learned from Zen Buddhists, but then what about Buddhists learning something from Christians? It's also an important point. So to this, I would answer very briefly that Buddhists in many places, especially Taiwan, but also Japan, Korea, they were inspired deeply by Christian ethics. For example, I remember when I was recently in Korea, there was in the past, there were many quarrels and fights among Buddhists. They were very passive. They were not actually committed to solve some social issue, but they were inspired, the same in Taiwan, they were inspired by Christian witnessing testimony to contribute to solve basic social issues like dealing with poverty, helping the underprivileged or outcast and whatever. So this kind of social action or social ethics, we can say, greatly influenced many Buddhists. So nowadays, for example, in Taiwan, we have Tseji foundations, or Four Mountains, Fagushan, Foguanshan, Tseji, Zhongtaishan, and so on. All of them are socially committed. Before, they did not care about social issues. Basically, they were locked in the monasteries, did not pay attention much to social problems. Now, actually, it started with Taixu, the very famous Buddhist reformer in mainland China before the war. He actually also inspired by Christian witnessing. He started this Reformation movement in Buddhism that later found its realization in these different communities in Taiwan. This is just an example of how Christianity continues to inspire Buddhism nowadays. Yes, this would be my brief answer.
Father, may I understand how you see this Satori experience of the Buddhism? Can it be compared to something like our mystical tradition of like union with God, like what the St. John of the Cross said, like nothingness and all these things, but you feel that you have a pip of the ultimate reality? I mean, what exactly does Buddhism think about this Satori experience? You understand the truth in an instant, or what exactly is it?
When Buddha, to the point of to answer this question, let us go back to the experience of Buddha. Buddha in Sanskrit means enlightened, right? That's why Buddha, the one who got enlightened, he was practicing very strenuously meditation, asceticism, and so on. Did not help him at all. But at one moment, he realized the truth of reality. So for Buddhists, this realization means to know. Buddhists use the term co-dependence originality. Co-dependent originality. It means Buddha, most probably, during this enlightening experience of enlightenment, understood how the world works, so to speak. It means how the world is based on the law of causality, of the causes and effects. Okay, that's why it is called co-dependent origination. The certain things originate because of other factors. These things take place because something else happened before. And once he understood this, he got enlightened. But he got enlightened in a moment when he was almost starved to death. He was almost dying because he did not eat anything. And at one moment, a girl appeared in the forest when he was meditating and brought him a bowl of milk with rice and gave him something to drink. And then in the far distance, he heard the instrument. When there was a string which was not properly tuned, the noise was terrible. Only when it was properly in tension, the string should be in tension so that to produce the proper sound, right? He understood one thing out of his very complex experience. He has been living very extravagant life as a prince. He had everything, a luxurious life. And then he went to another extreme, ascetic practices, almost starving to death. He realized that if we do not strike the balance, the middle way, we often tend to go to extremes, right? In our life also. We need to find the middle way. That's why Madhyanta in Buddhism means the middle way. It's not the way of extremes, it's the middle way. Only that path can lead us to realization. And I think that experience, well, Buddha himself refused to answer certain questions. 7 or 9 questions that he refused to answer to his disciples. Why? Because they were not yet enlightened. Only when you are enlightened, you can understand certain things. And one of these questions was, what is the experience of Tathagata, means the one who got enlightened. You cannot describe it. It's beyond. It's a state, briefly speaking, Buddhists understand it as a state of bliss. It means you feel, you have experience of being interconnected with the whole reality, not just as one being, but you feel as completely interconnected with other beings, with the animals, with the universe, be part of one, and you understand everything. You understand what is the source of suffering, and you are free from that. The ultimate goal of the Buddhist is moksha. It means liberation. Liberation from what? From ignorance about the source of suffering. It means the liberation from the suffering. Once you understand it, then you are free. That would be the gist of the experience of the Buddha. And referring to Raguin's experience, I think I cannot judge, of course. This is my only feeling. But he went, that was arranged for him because he did not consult Christian masters as far as I know. But he went to Japan because he wanted to know what the Buddhists would say about his experience. And he went to meet his monk in Kamakura, and seems to be, he got so, that experience was so source of happiness for him and inspiration that not before, what he was verifying his Kensho experience. It means jian xing, insight into his own nature. But on the flight to Vancouver, a few days after, only he experienced this satori. So it looks like, this is my guess. That it happened as the result, maybe partly as the result of this interesting conversation with the master, that he understood something there even more. So, but eventually it's a mystery, it's beyond words. Buddhism, Zen Buddhism especially, is the teaching beyond words. Actually, the practice, you can say something using the word, but ultimately, this experience is beyond words. And in this sense, individual experience is very important because it means you cannot transmit experience to other person. You can experience realization only by yourself. You cannot give it to others. Okay, you can help others to realize that in them, by this catalytic function of the religion, when you help others, right, to reach that realization, but you cannot replace them in this function. So in this sense, the role of the masters is very important. They are not replacing them, the disciples, they are helping them to grow independently in their spiritual maturity. This is how I would put that question. I will answer that question. Yeah.
Raguin writes in his book, Ways of Contemplation of East and West, that he accepted this challenge by Archbishop Lo Guang to give a course on contemplation. And he writes very interesting, I accepted this offer and as a challenge and service to the church. So this, I think, is an insight not to make syncretism, put all in the same basket, but still the central experience would be Christian. So what would you think could be specifically also all this research, what we are doing, but as a service to the church?
Basically, yes, definitely. Raguin was always a faithful son of the church, definitely, was not ambiguous in terms of doctrine teaching, although some of his interpretations may be problematic for some people of the church, but he never, as far as I know, he got any trouble. There were other Buddhist masters, Jesuit even, some Jesuit Buddhist masters or theologians who got trouble with the doctrine of faith, but he never, as far as I know. He several times, when I mention different points about spirituality, reawakening, the importance of reawakening of interiority. I think this would be the most important contribution of this encounter with Zen tradition. It means he several times mentioned that the West put too much emphasis on externality, which does not mean it's not important. But as we all know, too much stress on dogmas, on teaching, and on the hierarchy and functioning, so even social dimension, all this is fine, all this is important. But we have been, in the last few centuries, have forgotten the path of interiority. Not that it did not exist, but somehow was, we have been pretending that by talking about something, we are talking about spirituality, that actually was not actually the real dimension of depth of spiritual life. So the first contribution is definitely the most important one, contribution to the church. The second contribution would be the understanding of other religious traditions, because ignorance breeds hatred. Always, whenever we encounter interreligious conflicts and war, they are mainly coming from ignorance, not understanding others, not knowing others, why they believe what they believe in, and so on. So I think he helped many Christians to understand Buddhism and other religions better, deeper, and then, of course, to be engaged also in interreligious dialogue. In a sense, Buddhists somehow were, thanks to this, encouraged to be open, to become more open to Christians through this action. Whenever this kind of prejudgments, stereotypes, we are freeing ourselves from this, the others are becoming also more open. So this would be the second contribution, very important contribution. Knowledge, understanding, and respect of other religions, and especially of Buddhism, right? And not to mention all other publications, for example, that he helped to many Christians and also scholars to go deeper into the aspect of research of Buddhism, because this was not much present in especially in the 20th century. So he did, I think his contribution in this field, especially in this field, is quite important, and we are very grateful to him for that. Yeah.
Thank you. You have still a chance to ask a very difficult last question.
Yes.
Yeah.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please, we should also reach out.
Hi, this is Jane Tam from Hong Kong. I fully agree with Doctors Ricci's talking about contemplative spirituality. When we talk about the pluralistic theology, could only be understood by the contemplative spirituality and the importance from inter-religions to intra-religious dialogue. I fully, agree with it. But just a simple question that I would like to ask Dr. Ricci about how do you define spirituality in a simple and easy way for people to know? Because for me, I think every human being has a spiritual domain. Even though we may not be aware of it. So I just would like to ask a simple question. How do you define spirituality in a precise and short form? Thank you.
Thank you for this question. I don't think there is a precise answer. We are not here in analytical philosophy. With analytical philosophy approach, at least I find it difficult. Actually, probably every person would have a different definition of spirituality. In my view, spirituality is the most essential dimension of religious tradition. It means that religion as such may show us rituals, practices, doctrines, dogmas, ethical aspects. Still, we are not necessarily there in terms of the depth of religious tradition. Spirituality goes deeper. It is all-embracing, I would put it that way. Spirituality would be all-embracing dimension of religious traditions of humanity, in this case of wisdom traditions, that expresses the core message, the core experience of this tradition. Spirituality appeals more, please pay attention to this aspect. I refer to religious experience. Spirituality, more than dogmas and any other aspect of religion, simply, first of all, expresses the individual's relationship with the ultimate reality. So, in a brief statement or definition, I would put spirituality as the deepest way of expression of individuals' religious experience, the deepest dimension of religious experience of an individual person. Okay, this would be my definition or understanding of spirituality. So, in this sense, when we speak about contemplative spirituality, we have two words here. So, not only spirituality, contemplative. It means it shows us the way to contemplation, the way to spirituality, which means the best way. We can do various practices. Spirituality expresses itself in various forms, also in social action, right? Spirituality does not mean sitting in one room and navel-gazing experience. Spirituality can perfectly be when you go out and you meet people or you contemplate the environment. This is also spirituality. The question is how deeply you live that dimension in yourself. Because you may superficially just live that, or you can pay attention. That's why attention to the mystery is very important. So spirituality is something that helps us. Contemplative spirituality, which he proposes. Contemplation is the way to the depth of spirituality. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jane, for the question, please.
Hello. Father, I have two questions. The first is regarding the theology in Christian theology, we believe that God created the world ex nihilo, from nothing. So is there a Buddhist approach to this and how it is reconciled within Buddhist interreligious dialogue? And my second question is the theology of the afterlife. We in Christianity believe that we will either go to heaven and hell, of course, and it is an eternal state of the afterlife, whereas in Buddhism we believe the belief is that there is samsara, which is rebirth. So what would be the Buddhist approach to this in interreligious dialogues?
Yeah, these are two very important big blocks of discussion. Definitely the theology of creation and the theology of salvation, right? So anyway, every religion is about the salvific character of religions. This is the essential part, right? People want to understand how I can reach salvation, right? Not only liberation from suffering, but salvation. So with regard to creation, yes. The problem with Buddhists is that in Buddhism, the problem of creation does not definitely differs from Christianity. There was no one entity called God who created the world, but the world is the result of the karmic results. There were actually many worlds before our existence, many lives in which we had to incarnate ourselves. So this is one of the questions I mentioned before, one of the 9 questions Buddha did not want to answer, but I still want to answer. I still want to answer your questions while not being a Buddha, okay? Because yes, why he did not want to answer? Because this is the point is that this question is not relevant to your salvation, to your liberation. What counts for your liberation is not understanding whether there was eternal world or not. That was the question. The disciple asked him whether the world is eternal or not eternal, right? He refused to answer this question. Why? He was enlightened. He knew, most probably he knew what was the answer. But to unenlightened persons, you do not give answer, not because you consider them to be not intelligent enough or whatever. No, the point is that the person may misunderstand your answer. The analogy to Jesus, when you consider many gospels where Jesus is using very often, rarely is using very clear definitions and answers, very often using parables, metaphors, a symbolic language. Kingdom of God is close to you, never explicitly saying what kingdom of God is, right? Because when you are unenlightened, you may misunderstand the intention. So you have to accept the mystery as it is, and then it works in you as the seed. And one day we may understand it when we get enlightened. So yes, in Buddhism there is a very complicated, there are cosmological visions of the innumerable worlds that existed before, but it is basically connected to the concept of karma. And the karma is exhausted. There is an end to karma, right? When we enter nirvana means when the flame is extinguished, we enter nirvana. This is a state of bliss. It means the circle, the blind circle of rebirth is broken, and then we enter the state of bliss, and we do not suffer anymore. So this is the concept of salvation in Buddhism. Okay, and then the second question was about afterlife. So this is connected with, the first question was about creation. Now I touched already about the afterlife, right? So the salvation is nirvana, means not some kind of a relationship with personal God, because again, the nirvana state, Buddha refused to answer what is that. It is understood by Buddhists as a state of bliss, as a state of non-suffering. We do not basically are chained in this blind circle of rebirth. Okay, so that would be the basic answer of Buddhism. Okay, but what the state looks like, we can only grasp when we get there. We cannot describe it in words. We have to get there to experience that. So this has consequences for interreligious dialogue, truly, as you asked also. Yes, a very difficult issue of creation, how we can justify. We have the vision of creation of the universe, which we now know, in the past it was easy to justify. In the Bible, we have very clear image of, now we know that the infinity of universe and is expanding, right? Expansion of universe. To what point? How can we justify that? And especially in the context of Buddhism, paradoxically, cosmologically, this vision of Buddhism, Buddhist vision of creation corresponds with quantum physics nowadays, and with the physics and science more than the traditional view of the creation as it is presented in the Bible. But we know now, after hermeneutics, that we cannot read the Bible literally. We need to apply the hermeneutics, proper hermeneutics, to understand the context in which the Bible was written. And even the vision of the creation of the world cannot be read literally. So in this sense, we need to dialogue with Buddhists, I think, is very promising, combining with the sciences also. Christianity is also open to dialogue with Buddhists and with sciences, especially quantum physics nowadays, which is a very interesting answer, and we may find some affinities either with science or with Buddhism. So I would say difficulties are there, many, but it opens us up plethora of possibilities for the dialogue. So I would not be afraid. Yeah, it's challenging for us Christians, but it's fascinating, this dialogue with science and with Buddhism. Yeah.
Thank you. It's also time that I give homage and thank our colleagues from the Taipei Ricci Institute. They made available amazing material, and we think this is a research that has been neglected. So I want also to thank Father Olivier Lardinois that he generously, very quickly gave us access to very important sources. I would also like to mention is a great chance that we have the opportunity to work together, practice and theory. So we do practice contemplation. Next time will be on the 30th of December. And every other month it will be in Hong Kong. So you could come over maybe on the side in the Catholic Center, Saturday 10 to 12:30. And every other month we want to do it online, also to see that this is a great chance to experience what we were talking today. But give a great hand to Father Durai. It was great how much you covered in this limited amount of time. And it's for us, for me also really an encouragement that you so enthusiastically also support this research. Thank you really very much.